All right, for today's SOLIDWORKS walkthrough, we're going to be building this large skillet. So if you'd like to go ahead and navigate to the course files, you'll find it in the Week 4 Demos folder. So you can pause this and download that quickly. All right. So we're going to start off today with a reminder that your submission for next week will be expected to be oriented and built with the front plane, the right plane, and the top plane as your main references. And the reason for this is so that you can easily mirror and work around those planes in terms of mating it in an assembly down the road. But it also just gives a really nice opportunity to make sure everything in your design is symmetric. Now, there usually is at least one plane that most items are symmetric on, and it can save a lot of time and effort by making that from the beginning of your file. So that's where we'll start. Actually, I'm going to cut my camera off so you can focus on just the screen. Okay. So we're going to start with a sketch on the top plane. Actually, I have put things into folders to organize them a little better in terms of what part I'm working on, or what part of the skillet I'm working on. So you can do this at the outset, or you can wait till you have a lot in your history tree and then start to organize it that way. But for me, I do like to use folders for that reason. So you can see I'll leave my planes on just so you can see those. And I started by sketching on the top plane, but I knew that I wanted my total height of this item to be a little over 3 inches tall. So I made this plane 1, referencing the top plane. So click on the top plane, create reference geometry plane, and then you can define the height right here. So I made that top plane, or that plane number 1, and you could call it top of pan. I don't usually name all my planes, but for this one, I wanted to loft rather than do a revolve. Just seemed easier, and I could define these dimensions. So let's go ahead and look into that. So this is a solid loft right here. Sketch 1 and sketch 2. The bottom I defined as 10 inches in diameter and the top 12 inches. So it gives me a nice deep pan. This is kind of based off of, I don't know if you've ever heard of or used like a chicken fryer pan, but it's a really deep skillet. So that's what I wanted to build today. So for the spout, you can go back into the earlier demos from this week and see all the different ways that you can build a spout. For this one, I did a sweep and defined most of those characteristics just with 2 sketches, an oval, and then a sweep guide curve. And you can see I'm sketching on the right plane for that guide curve. So that's another reason to keep everything, especially if you have a symmetric design, to keep everything aligned with those planes so that you can easily find a sketch plane to sketch on. So almost all my planes you'll see me sketching on here are the top plane, the right plane, and the front plane. Just makes it so much simpler than having to create planes based on offset geometry. So keep normal consistent in the options down here. Usually the guide curves will be popped up. I almost never use guide curves for a sweep, just that initial one. That's the loop that it's taking that open profile around. So options, keep normal consistent, looks a lot better to me than this one. You can see if I do that, it's going to have kind of a pinchy, twisty element here. It won't matter for our purposes really, but you can see the difference is that the keep normal constant is a lot smoother and more gentle of a curve as it takes it around there. So that's usually what I choose to do. And I didn't combine it yet. So I've seen a couple of people mention their things are getting combined too early. So in the options down here, you'll see merge result. If I do that and click merge result, it'll be part of this big pan already. And I don't want that yet because I'm going to go ahead and mirror it so I don't have to do another sketch, another sweep. So it's already saving me time by allowing me to do that. Now I do want to combine them. So that combine tool, again, is up in the features. Actually, I don't think that it's always here, so you may have to search for it and then drag it down to your features toolbar, but I use it all the time. You can see it's grayed out now because I only have one solid body, because these all have been combined into one. So that feature is there for us to use, combines two or more solid bodies. And as soon as you combine it, it's no longer an option because you only have one solid body left in your file. So I'm going to add a couple of fillets here to the outside. I use the face fillet option. There's lots of details on that in the demo files from earlier this week. And then I'm going to show you what I did with this move body copy. But essentially, I copied another one exactly of this. I'll show you why in just a minute. But actually, I'm going to hide that copy to show you the shell. So after I have that spout in place, I filleted it because I want that fillet to continue onto the inside of the pan, so I don't have a hard edge inside there. So I added the fillet and then shelled it out. And you do have to pick, if you just select the face that you want to be then open. So it's just one face to select, which is pretty nice. If your fillet's very, very small, the fillet may not populate to the inside or the outside when you do a shell feature. So it might take a couple attempts to get that to work out for you. So here is why I did this move body copy. On a lot of cast iron tools, you will see a larger rim, like a little bit thicker of a rim, and that's to protect it from wear and tear. So if you bang it against something, obviously cast iron is very hard, but it's also somewhat brittle. So you don't want it to break over time. These get, battle tested. I should put some images of my cast iron pans in the course files, but they get beat up, especially enamel coated cast iron products. So a lot of them have a slightly thicker rim. So what I wanted to do here was copy that whole body, and then I did a cut extrude, so I just had that lip represented. So the cut extrude is cutting away, everything below this. So now I've basically just copied it up here. So it's just that top portion. Now, one of my favorite commands that I've showed you a couple of times is move face. And move face allows you just to shift all of it out just slightly. So in the move face option, you have this previewing for you, which is really nice. But if you select all of these faces, you can tell it's just offsetting them ever so slightly. So you'll want, for this, thickening an edge, you want the offset version. You do have to select all the way around, so you have to select all of these. But one thing you can do is right-click on any face and select tangency, and that'll select all of the faces on the outside. Then you can go right into your surfaces panel and click Move Face. Actually, it's in the Features panel. Move Face. So that's an easy way to not have to select them all. So right-click, select tangency, and then Move Face. So it'll select all of it for you. And again, you can see if you move it out too far, you lose that fillet. But I only moved it out a little bit, so you can get the details in here, but it's just 0.06 inches that I moved that out. And then surface offset. I'll show you why I did that. So here's my shell. So now, obviously, my pan is hollowed out, and now I have this nice thickened edge, but I have all this crap in the middle. So what I'm going to do, rather than shell that out, which you could do, top and bottom shell to that portion, I'm going to use this a little bit later too. A surface offset of the interior edges of this pan, because I don't want anything to encroach on the inside of the pan. So offset surfaces in your surfaces toolbar, and again, you can right-click, select tangency, and it'll select all of those surfaces for you, and offset surface. And we're going to use this as a trimming tool for a couple of things in this file. So surface cut, you are going to select that move face body. Let's show it. Show it. There we go. So actually we'll hide our pan. So we've got our surface, there's our move face. So there's our surface cut. So beforehand, it was full. Now you can see that surface kind of coming to the inside, like we've talked about. Any edge shown in blue is showing a surface edge, not a solid edge. So just a quick visual indicator there, but you'll get that surface cut going, and the direction can be changed on it. So you could cut just to the outside. You can see that the arrow switch back and forth, or just to the inside. So you have both those options with that tool. Obviously, I just want to cut away what's on the inside of that surface. And now you'll see it does mate up exactly to the inside edge, and I'm happy with that. You'll see right now, especially if you select one, you get this kind of tiger stripe, strange look. That usually means that those surfaces are coincident, so it's not a problem right now. It does look a little off, but we're just going to leave that alone. It's doing what it's supposed to do. So that's all for the main body. So your assignment for this week will have at least 5 features in it. And you can see I've already used, let's see, a loft, a sweep, a mirror, a combine. We're not going to count fillets as features, but a shell, a cut extrude, even a move face. I think those would all count as individual features that are not just edge detailing, like a fillet and a chamfer. So I think you'll pretty easily meet that requirement of at least 5 different features in your design execution. So we'll move on to the handle. Not that one. Okay, here we go. Long handle. So we're going to start on this long handle in the back. So sketch 9. Looking at different pans, just in general, pictures on the internet, pans I have in my kitchen. Most of them have an uplifted, like an arc toward the back, so that when you go to grab the pan, it's a little easier to grab. It's not just a straight out pan. Now, we may need to shift these to just a straight flat design to accommodate for, ease of molding these items that you guys are going to do at the foundry. But just consider that. We'll get into a little more manufacturing constraints later. For this is a concept execution, and this happens a lot of the time in the real world. You'll have an idea and you're not sure if it's completely manufacturable, but you want to get the first version of that idea out there, talk about it, talk about some of the constraints and some of the cost benefit of executing your design this way. So this is what I started with, just a quick sketch. Again, on the front plane. So I'm looking at the side of my pan. These are my 2 pour spouts, so the pan's going to be on the side here. And I just want it to have a nice arc. So first, I set up these just straight lines to use as a guide for the angle. And then I manage the distance between them to be 0.625 inches. And then I just added a 3-point arc here to use as the actual, kind of defining lines for the handle. The straight just seemed a little too aggressive, a little too straight and unfriendly. So I do like to use them as a underlay, like a reference point to define some angles and use that way. So you can take a look at those sketches if that helps. So now for the actual shape of the handle. Again, I'm going to make use of the mirror feature, so I'm only going to draw 1/2 of this handle. And just generally, loosely, based on, just kind of overall feel, this is where I decided to take this one. Actually, I'm going to adjust this angle a little bit. I wonder if I can get... Yeah, I think I like that a little bit better. Cool. So one thing you'll notice is I'm building inside of this pan surface, or the pan that we've created. Obviously, it's not going to extend inside the pan later on, but what I don't want to do is, building directly to all of these edge details could get really fussy, and then if you change anything about them, your handle geometry can fail. So what I like to do is each feature I'm building that's kind of, its own separate entity, like the handle versus the pan, I like to build them kind of into and past each other's edges, and then use some tools to cut away at them. I find that's a much more easily editable and gives me a little more flexibility than tying me to all the stuff I've done on this pan so far. So got a nice one single side of my handle, kind of drafted up, and I just used a simple spline and measured, what I thought would be a comfortable handle width, divided it by 2. So I have a thin portion, a thick portion at the very back that I know I want to put a hanging loop in, so that's bulged out a little bit more. But nothing too specific about these measurements, just something I had tried, refined, and drug these around a little bit till I was happy with the shape. There's that. So now, before mirroring it, one thing that you can do is use those lines before to split the geometry of your handle you've extruded. So I extruded a big block. Now I want to start carving away at it. So it's almost like, thinking about taking some material into the shop. If you were going to mock this up for a quick prototype, how would you get that material to do what you wanted? Would you bandsaw a big block of wood and then come back and try to get, some of those curves in place? That's kind of how I start thinking about how to construct something in as simple a manner as possible. Is if I had a big wood block or a foam block, how would I start cutting away at it? So I used the split tool in that sketch that we'd created to split out and delete everything that was above and below kind of those defining curves that I wanted for my handle. And then after some trial and error down in this tree, I found that this variable radius fillet didn't work as well or as cleanly after I had already mirrored the handle. So I applied this variable radius fillet way up here in the tree. And I'd caution you against putting fillets in too early, but I tried it way at the end and it just wasn't working. So do what works, but yeah, I would caution you to put too many fillets in too early. You'll see I really don't have all that many fillets, just on the big chunky edges. So variable fillet's pretty cool. You can take it from a small fillet to a large one, especially on the back of a handle where your hand's going to be resting. I thought that was pretty important to get it a little chunkier back there, but I didn't want this whole thing to be super curved. So that's why I chose a variable fillet for that edge. You can play around with that tool. It's a good one. Rather than do all of that again, I'm going to use the mirror tool. And in that mirror dialog, I did choose to merge those bodies, or merge solids. So I want to merge those two together only. And then I want a little hanging loop. So I just sketched what I thought would be an appropriate hanging loop right there. So something to try out. I try to keep things, especially if it's going to be a simple kind of cutout handle or a cutout loop, try to keep it constrained to, just falling on that top flat surface rather than cutting into these edges. That starts to get a little bit muddy, a little bit messy looking. So just 2 circles. I did make sure that these lines were tangent to the circles so that I don't have a weird corner here, but it doesn't have to be all that constrained, but I thought this was a good place to start. And as these are going to be files that you are 3D printing and prototyping, learning more about, you just got to start somewhere. It may not be perfect, but find some place to start. And then this part's not required, but I wanted to shell out the handle just to start to carve away at it. Obviously, this tall of a handle would be really thick, possibly not moldable at all because it would just cool at a different rate than the thin wall of the pan itself for the skillet. So I went ahead and shelled that out. We'll talk more about moldability and shelling, but for now I just wanted to carve it out so that it wasn't totally solid. Same thing I would do if I was going to 3D print this. I would want to see it shelled out. Now I'll move on to the lift handle. So for that, I wanted it to have kind of the same upward, nice curved tilt that this long handle had. So what I did first was I actually mirrored these sketch entities over the right plane. So another great reason to use planes, you can just use them, or use these planes, is you can use it for all kinds of things. So mirroring sketch entities, stuff like that. So I took these, these 2 curves from this sketch, mirrored over a line that I drew right in the center here so that I now have these matched. So if I make any adjustments here, they are going to populate to the side of the handle. So something to consider, but I was pretty happy with this result. Very similar construction-wise, in that I did just a chunky boss extrude that I thought could encompass the handle on the top plane, and then extruded it out, again building into the inside of the skillet so at least it overshoots all of the edge details, so I don't have to worry about those. I wanted to have, at least on the outside edge, a nice curve. I thought flat was just a little unfriendly looking, didn't quite match up to the the exterior of the pan, so I did go with a nice circular offset shape for that front edge of the handle. And then there are detail fillets, and then there are, kind of architectural fillets that really define what the overall design looks like. So I would say this is more of an architectural fillet, so it's a really chunky fillet. It's not just, breaking this edge. It's actually giving some character and shape to the handle and what the interior of the handle will feel like for a user. So went ahead and added that. Same as before with our long handle, I used the split tool and the sketch on that boss extrude to just keep that center part that I wanted. So you can see it has a nice, uplifted, and that arc isn't super, it's not super defined. You can't really tell that it's an arc. And that's one thing. You could go a little more curved with the arc. You could bring its radius, down a bit so that it was more defined as an arc shape, but I was pretty happy with how this turned out. So for this handle, instead of doing you could have done a boss extrude or a thin extrude from the top view, but rather than doing that, this is a simple chunky shape, so I just decided to do a shell. And you can get it to, this thin profile by selecting essentially all of the faces except your outer edge. So if you select all those faces, interior side, this side here, top, bottom, it's going to shell all of that out for you to the same consistent thickness. So I think that's a really easy way to execute a nice chunky handle, and keeping some of that character that comes with cutting it from the side view and having a nice top profile for the original shape. Again, going to mirror that and combine it with the other solid body part right there. You can see pretty quickly you executed that handle. So one thing about these surface offsets is I like to keep these and then use those tools over and over again, especially for something like this. So that surface offset we did before, it was not consumed in the cutting away of that lip on the inside. So we're going to use that again and again. So there's the lift handle. And what I like to do now is outside of that lift handle folder, and you can organize things however you find them helpful, but I'll just show you what has worked for me. So again, we've got that surface offset. I'm just hiding and showing things so you can see what I'm working with. So you can see, because these extend all the way inside that pan geometry, I can use that surface offset. And actually this one doesn't quite, but it's inside the pan itself, I think. So could have gone a little bit longer with this, looks like. So surface cut, again, you will cut what is on the interior. So all that goes away. And then I want to combine these handles with the pan. And there we go. So now we have a nice clean interior surface. Our handles extend into that cast iron pan base, but they're not built up to it, if that makes sense. It's a lot easier to cut away at things that are, built this way, I find. So let's go ahead and hide those sketches so we can see our pan. So that's kind of our resulting shape. Just make sure that this goes all the way in. Yep, it does. So if for some reason this was too short, there are a couple ways that you could move that face inside, but that looks like it worked. And then on to edge treatment. So you can see I don't have any fillets along the very outer edges of anything just yet, and that is by design or intentional. So we have one angry customer down here. That's okay. We'll fix that. So edge treatments. And this is something we'll be looking for, anytime you have merged bodies. That's going to be a structural element as well, not just an ergonomic feature. So anytime you have a handle or something coming into the cast iron body, consider adding a really nice fillet to try to add a little bit of strength and durability to it. So we'll go back and back. So I just filleted those little edges up in there and brought those down quite a bit. You can see even in the side view how what before looked like a really simplistic design, but I knew that I was going to manage this transition with a really chunky fillet. So you can see that already added quite a bit of stability, but also it just looks better. I'm going to fillet to the top of my hanging loop, a fillet to the bottom of the hanging loop. Let's see what this one was. Oh, okay, a fillet to that face. I just wanted to round off these edges just a bit. And that might be something that might not populate to the actual final production CAD for this, but when I start to do something, I like to at least show what I'm thinking for all of the edge detailing, just to capture it. And I think in a rendering too, it looks a lot nicer. So even if I was to render this at this stage, I would want to add just some fillets, just some. All right, so fix that one. Not sure what happened to it, but and then top fillets over here. This is a lift handle, so it's not quite as it's not going to have quite the leverage placed on it as if you were holding it back here and you had a heavy pan. So it doesn't need the fillets to be quite as large, but these are still pretty generous, and I think, you know, looks better and is a little better supported for lifting that off the stove. The pan itself would be really heavy since it's 12 inches in diameter. Again, I tried the variable fillet on the handle, wasn't successful, but I would try out the variable fillet feature yourself if you want something with a really nice round fillet, but then also to come to essentially a point rather than being really chunky and round. This is a way to do that. There's a variable fillet tool inside this. So it'll be that second fillet type, is variable size fillet. So you can explore that and see how that works for you. Oops, lost my pan. Come back. So I was happy with that. Added a fillet to the inside. You can see I've toggled my my shaded with edges off. I like to keep the edges on when I'm looking at it just so I can see where things are coming together, but you can always turn them off for screen grabs or just to see what it looks like. So there's that. Went over this in the spout options demo earlier in the week, but you'll want to, if you are going to have a pouring edge, a wicking edge, I like to have a chamfer on the inside just so it helps to break the water surface tension there instead of a fillet that goes all the way around, super roundy. We may hear something different from the cast iron guys, but for products I've worked on before, that was a good idea. Delete face. Oh yeah, I'll show you what that was about. So under here, you remember we had that lip that we'd worked on, that thickened lip. It did extend kind of into this under handle side area. There's really no reason to have to eliminate it right now, but just in terms of cleaning it up, I like to do that sometimes. So the delete face tool, using the patch, delete and patch, just cleans that up and gets it out of the way so I could add a fillet. So I like to do that. Next, I did go and add edge fillets on everything. So just a very, very small edge fillet on that outside hard edge. And again, down here at the bottom of this lip, that thickened lip, I added it there. And then I just added one more in that little underside I just showed you. It is a little chunkier. I think looking at the section, you can tell it's just a little better supported. What you can get with hard edges meeting against each other when force is applied, that you can have the increased risk of breakage and a stress riser when force is applied to it. So something I like to do. So that is all the edge treatments, and that's it for today's demo. Just wanted to walk through a skillet build and kind of some of the things that I would recommend you just to consider. Yours doesn't have to be, for your submission for next Monday, it doesn't have to be quite this involved, but I definitely want to see that you've tried to execute your design using some of these solid modeling tools and techniques we've been discussing these past couple of weeks. Start to consider, ergonomic impact, where a user is going to be grabbing it. Is it going to be comfortable? Rather than a hard, sharp edge here, it's nice and rounded. It's going to be able to be hung on a pot rack. It's a lift handle for people to get this on and off a stove because it is a really large piece. Pour spouts, consideration for pouring edge, just a couple of things. Again, you don't have to build them all in there, but at least 5 different features and some attention to detail with those edges. That's all I've got for today.